Well, it is once again time for today's Breakfast Bite, and for the first time in a few weeks, I'm joined by Revd Gareth Higgs. Hey Gareth, how you doing?
I'm good, thanks. It's really good to be back, Nathan. How are you?
I am very good, thank you. And it's great to see you again. Are you ready to bring us today's Breakfast Bite?
Yeah, I think so. Cool. Well, let's take it away. I don't know how many of the people listening to this are great gardeners. It's really not my forte. I've inherited in my house a wonderful garden, and a few generations back, a former inhabitant had really cultivated it to something quite amazing. And there are, in every sort of good garden, what you get is that every now and again, almost without doing anything or despite the not doing anything, these wonderful plants and wonderful colours still kind of come out each season throughout the year. And we're very much in the beautiful sunshine today, enjoying the benefits of things like that. But on the odd occasions when I do try and grow some plants, I've dabbled in growing some vegetables in the past and growing some other things. It it takes a bit of effort to get to the place where something would grow. You need to have the seed, obviously, and then I said I'm no expert, so I caveat my expert in that. But you need some soil that's of a decent quality. So you may want to add some compost. You may want to kind of treat the soil, or certainly dig it up to make sure there's no weeds or it's not too kind of sodden, etc. And the soil needs to be good. You perhaps, if you're really keen, might put some kind of netting or some protective stuff over the plant to make sure that kind of slugs and animals don't get at it. You might water the plant. You might perhaps add some plant food. And then, of course, you want to make sure it gets plenty of light and warmth. So, in other words, it's important to try and create the conditions for something to grow. The one thing, of course, we cannot do ever is make something grow. The best job we can do is to create the conditions for that growth to take place. And just been thinking in the recent days about where Jesus talks about him being the vine, the true vine, and how God, his Father, our Father, is the gardener, and how that by being connected to Jesus, the true vine, growth happens in our lives. I don't mean kind of physical growth that we grow suddenly very tall, but actually spiritual growth happens. And the evidence of spiritual growth is that we show forth what Jesus calls fruit. So, in other words, an attitude of love, of kindness, of patience, of gentleness, of self-control, of goodness, of joy, of peace. Those things being present in our lives and being recognized by others are the fruit, the demonstration that we really belong to Jesus. Jesus says, if you are my disciples, you will show this by bearing much fruit. So we say, well, that's a really good thing. So Jesus is God is the gardener. Jesus is the thing from which we grow and bear fruit. But how do we actually make that happen? Well, as I said, we cannot create the growth. All we can do is create the conditions for growth. All we can do is do all that we can to maintain our connection with Jesus, that his life flows through into our life and produces the evidence that we belong to him, those characteristics and values that we see in him. So how do we keep connection? Well, it's a bit like the kind of creating the environment for the seed in the garden to grow. We we dig into God's word, we share conversation and fellowship with other Christians, we take time to pray, we take time to be still and to notice the goodness of God all around us. We go away to Christian festivals or things like that every now and again to kind of join with other people. We take time out to read and reflect and to study and allow our mind to be attuned. Maybe depending on our Christian tradition, it might be important to us to take Holy Communion and things such as that. But all of those things, we're putting ourselves in the position where growth can occur. We're helping to build and develop our connection to Jesus. And then as we do that, more and more and more and more, his life, more and more and more and more, will flow into, through, and then out of us. Jesus said that the fruit is the evidence we belong to him, And that part of that fruit is that we show love one to another, that actually our serving of others, our treating of other people in with dignity, with honor, with respect, with care, with faithfulness, is part of demonstrating that we belong to Jesus as well. It's part of the fruit that shows that we belong to him. So I want to challenge you, people who are listening today, whether you're listening at home or driving to work or whatever it is that you might be doing. How can you cultivate a kind of a connection with Jesus today? How can you cultivate growth in your life? It might be that you're a person of faith and therefore drawing close to Jesus is something you want to do. Well, what practical step are you going to take to create the climate, to create the conditions for spiritual growth in your life? Maybe that don't consider yourself a follower of Jesus. Well, actually, if you want the things that are good things, the fruit of in your life of love, of joy, of peace, patience, those are good things. I want more of those things. What are you going to do today that's actually going to take a practical step towards cultivating that in your life? What are you going to do to create the conditions for kind of personal growth, whether it's spiritual, character, whatever? What are you going to do in order that Jesus might live more and more in you, through you today, and that you might bear fruit that shows that you belong to him?
Thanks so much, Gareth. That's a great thought for us. And I love the analogy of the vine that Jesus gives. It really helps us to understand what it means to be connected to Jesus. Obviously he is the one from whom we draw strength.
That's
It's
right.
not our own strength that allows us to produce fruit, because we can't do that on our own. But that love, that joy, that peace in Jesus, we can produce that fruit, and that is a very desirable fruit.
It is. That's right. Those are all things that are really attractive to people, aren't they?
Yeah.
I don't think you ever see somebody think, "Goodness me, they're so loving, it's irritating." Well, that person's just so peaceful. Oh, what a pain! They're things that we want. They're attractive. It's like good tasting fruit, if you extend the metaphor. Yeah, and they only come from having more of Jesus living in us, definitely.
Absolutely. And I think that's a really good thing for us to take away, to think about how can we create those conditions? Because, obviously Jesus gives us the strength to produce that fruit, but it is up to us to choose the right conditions, to do what we can to allow that fruit to grow.
That's right. Yeah.
Well, thanks so much, Gareth. It's great speaking to you again, and I look forward to another Breakfast Bite next week.
No worries. Thanks a lot.